Okay, so this is my favorite kind of Sunday lesson. All right, so it's our third about vulnerability, right? And its presence in our lives. And it's my favorite kind of lesson because I want to build my lesson today around a story that we've all been told, and probably actually most of us have told the story to in some way. And I'm going to take a metaphysical approach to it, meaning I'm going to take a high perspective on the details of the story. And I think that's a really powerful way to look at any of the stories we either read or tell or whatever. Even the stories that are super personal, it's interesting to look at them from the symbology or the metaphysical kind of way to look at it. And like all good stories, this one, there are many ways to tell it, so I'm going to tell it my way. And if it doesn't match the way you were always told it, I'm so sorry. So once upon a time, because all good stories start with those words, once upon a time, there was a mama pig. And she sent her 3 sons out into the world, and she warned them that they must find a way to protect themselves from the big bad wolf. And you know the story. The first little piggy went out and he grabbed some straw and he built his house of straw very quickly and he went on to play. And the second piggy built his house out of sticks, also quite rapidly. Built his house and he went out to play too. But the third little piggy, because there's always a third character that does it something different, right? So the third piggy took more time. He carefully searched for the right place to build his house, and he built his house out of bricks. And just about the time all 3 houses were completed, the big bad wolf came around. He started making his rounds. And he found the first piggy in his house of straw, and he huffed, and he puffed, and he blew the house down. And that little piggy, very scared, ran over to his brother's house of sticks to hide there. And the big bad wolf followed them to the house of sticks, and when he got there, he huffed, and he puffed, and he blew the house down. And those 2 little piggies ran out and over to their brother's house built of bricks. And when the wolf followed them there, he huffed, and he puffed, and he huffed, and he puffed, but he could not blow the house down. And then there's some stories that go on that they cook the wolf and all this kind of stuff, but I'm just going to stop right there. So what can we learn from this classic story? So our theme for the month, again, is vulnerability, and this old classic story fits perfectly with the theme. And I want to break it down and look at the various elements of it. So just like the 3 little pigs, at some point in our lives, we set out looking for confidence and security in our world. And like the little pigs, most of us were kind of launched from our parents' house or whatever our beginning spot was, and the mama pig figure in our lives knew, just like the mama of the little pigs, our mama figure knew that when we were sent out, that we were going to be vulnerable in this life too. And most of the wise adults around us have actually had quite a lot of experience of house building and protecting vulnerability and all that kind of stuff. And they're willing to share that with us. But most little piggies, including myself and probably all of you, when we're young adults, we really don't want to listen to the wise stories of the people around us. We want to live our own lives and figure things out for ourselves. And so all of us little piggies, we go out into living and we do start figuring things out for ourselves. And we start building structures to secure our futures, okay? So do you remember that time in your life when you set out and you began to start building your life and the structures? Maybe you went out a little bit of out of time, or maybe you left completely all at one time. But however it happened, we began to look for something to use to find some safety and security in the world, right? So some of us built our structures, some of our first structures, out of straw, temporary and impermanent materials. So this straw in the story for me represents everything in the world of form. Okay, so now this kind of straw shows up in our lives pretty early for some people, right? We all know a few from our younger days. Some straw houses are built on your looks and your appearances, right? The great body, the great smile, your athletic accomplishments or whatever. Some straw houses are built with possessions or other things like the right neighborhood or the right bank account or the beautiful house or the right car or whatever. All of those things are straw things. And let me reassure you, none of those things are bad, right? But the truth is, however the house straw is built, it's built around an idea of perfectionism. And all form, no matter how perfect, is temporary and it will fade. Nothing on the physical level can protect us from vulnerability, because we're all going to have bad hair days. We're all going to have age. We're going to age. We're going to be diagnosed with this or that or the other. Our physical attributes will change and fade. Sometimes our money situation can change and change quickly. Houses burn down or get blown down or whatever, and nothing is permanent. So perfection on the physical level is simply not achievable, and the house built out of such straw will not last when it's challenged. Our vulnerability is simply not protected in houses built of straw. Okay? But what about sticks? What about sticks, Laine? They're a little bit better than straw, right? So for me, the stick analogy is about being protected from vulnerability by someone else or other people. A stick house is about relationships. If I have the right girlfriend or the right boyfriend, the right spouse, the right partner, the right somebody, I will no longer be vulnerable. If I work for the certain right company, or if I represent a particular brand, I'm going to be secure. If I join the right branch of the military, perhaps, or if I'm aligned with the right political party or social group, I'll be okay. If I'm in the clique and I feel accepted and wanted and valued, my stick house is very strong. Here's the thing. A stick house is built on the idea of comparison. Compared to everyone else, I am okay. And the people around me make me feel safe. Again, we all know people who started building that kind of a house really quite young. They were on the right team. They married their high school sweetheart. They went to the perfect job. They affiliated with the right status fraternity or whatever. It's the people around them. So let's see if you find this part to be true. Most people building houses of comparison and perfection are using both sticks and straws. They kind of use them interchangeably. And I think all of us have gathered our own fair share of sticks and straws along the way, because we're chasing that feeling of stability and worthiness. We want to stop the feeling of vulnerability and unworthiness. So when vulnerability shows up again, we start reaching for another stick or another straw. If this relationship ends, then I'll get a facelift. Or if I get injured, I join a group of other injured people. So I've got people around me, sticks and straws, straws and sticks. But guess what always comes around? The big bad wolf, fear. And it huffs and it puffs a lot. We all know that right now in our society, the diagnoses of anxiety and depression and other mental challenges are rampant because the big bad wolf wears costumes like a pandemic, or like global warming, or like political upheaval, or interest rate hikes, or mass gun shootings, or recessions, or wars, or all of these things on wide scale levels. But the big bad wolf also wears personal costumes like illness or relationship breakups or loss of loved ones. It's dressed up as something. And likely our mamas told us about the big bad wolf and the wolf huffs and puffs around us our whole lives. It is not unexpected. But what about the house of bricks, Laine? Where can we find those powerful bricks? And why does it take so much more time to build a brick house than one of sticks and straws? First of all, the pig that built the brick house had to search for the right place to build. So he had a solid, firm, level foundation underneath his house, right? And in my analogy, that solid foundation is truth with a capital T. You know, Reverend Dieter talked last week about having a sense of identity that goes beyond who the world tells us we are. the sticks and straws, right? The facts about who we are. I talk about the difference between facts and truth. And our foundation has to be on the truth of who we are on the inside. And that's a great foundation to build your house on. And I don't know about you, but it took me many, many years of sticks and straw buildings to even start looking for a strong place to build a better house for myself, a better identity for myself. I had the experience of so many houses being blown down before I started looking for bricks. But once I figured out that there was a truth about me that never changed, I knew I could build on that. My foundation is that I'm a spiritual being, I'm a child of God, I'm a soul on a journey. That's the bedrock of my life. Upon this rock, I will build my house. And my talk title is Brick by Brick. And I want to talk about the bricks that we can add to our foundation of our house so that when the huffing and puffing wolf of fear comes around, it has no real power for us. Because if we place the right bricks, we can face our vulnerability, which is never going away, by the way. But we can face it with grace and strength and live life more confidently. So what are those bricks? I believe that those bricks are spiritual principles and practices that we learn around here. So the foundation of my whole structure of my life is that I'm a spiritual being rooted in divinity. Then here are some of the bricks I want to lay. One brick I want to lay, and I invite you to lay in one of the walls of your house, is oneness. The brick of oneness. I lay that one so that I can live compassionately. Everyone else is a spiritual being too. I don't need to hurt anyone else, like Susan said in her reading. I don't need to protect myself, and I don't need to hurt anyone else, because everyone else is made of God stuff too. They're all just using their God stuff to build their houses the best that they can. They're looking for safety and security just like I am. And some people are acting out of desperation, surrounded by sticks and straws, just like I have been many, many times in my life. I can have compassion for those who solve problems differently than me. I can have compassion for those struggling with their attachment to physical security, compassion for those clinging to relationships that might even just be sticks on fire, right? Oneness helps me feel compassion in the presence of all of that. The next brick I want to lay is love. Love. The brick of love is carefully laid so that I can be in a perpetual state of forgiveness and harmony. I forgive myself for the houses that I built out of sticks and straws before I knew better. I forgive those around me for judging my sticks and straws. I forgive myself for hurting people who blew on my house of sticks and straws in the past. I can forgive people who might be blowing on it right now. Love is an absolutely necessary brick that I lay over and over again. What about a brick of gratitude? Gratitude, I lay this brick as a cornerstone for the structures that I build. Gratitude. I'm grateful for this firm foundation that I'm building on in my spiritual identity. I'm grateful for the sticks and straws that got me this far, quite frankly. And those sticks and straws continue to add decoration to my brick house, because that's the deal. We all enjoy the sticks and straws. We all enjoy the physical things and the relationships that we're in. But the difference now is that we know that we don't use them to build our house. We use them to decorate our life. They don't define our lives. God defines us. They're just decorations. Which leads me to my next brick, which is non-attachment. Non-attachment, or acceptance of what is. That brick is so important, because when I feel like I'm going to lose something, or something important is not going to work out the way I thought it was going to work out, then I can feel less vulnerable, right? Less vulnerable if I'm not attached. Non-attachment, or radical acceptance, is the brick that reminds me that everything's going to be okay in the end, no matter what happens. I like to say, if it's not okay, then it's not the end. I haven't gotten all the way there. I can do my best, and then I can relax and accept the outcome. So I lay this brick next to the last brick I'm going to talk about, which is spiritual practice, which is actually lots of bricks. Because every brick that I lay in my house, I want to do it mindfully and intentionally And that takes practice. Practice. Prayer and meditation keep me centered in the knowledge that I am powerfully creative. If I'm unhappy with what's going on in my life, spiritual practice brings me back to my thoughts, my choices, my actions. I can look at the sticks and straws around me and say, what purpose are they serving? Why did I draw them into my life? And if I don't want them there anymore, how do I change the atmosphere so that they're not sustained here any longer? I can live in that structure of spiritual truth bricks. And guess what? Just like in the story, building a house of bricks, laying them one at a time, brick after brick, over and over again, that takes time. It's much easier to pull together sticks and straws, right? Life hands you sticks and straws. They're easily recognized and valued and wanted, but you have to look for bricks. I found spirituality more than 20 years ago, and I'm still sorting through what's a brick, what's a stick, what's a straw. I'm still searching through that every day, every single day. Because vulnerability is part of being a little piggy. But being afraid of the big bad wolf, that's optional. And I want to talk about that. What if I told you the big bad wolf isn't big or bad, right? The wolf exists. We encounter it every day. But the wolf is actually an aspect inside yourself, our own fear. There is no power outside of ourselves. Remember that. There's not another power. There's God, there's not another power. Now, all that huffing and puffing, it's coming from inside you. Inside you. I want to give a few examples of how the wolf shows up. There's a fear that we will get sick and die. That's a real fear. But it doesn't have as much power if you're living in a house of bricks as it did when it was huffing and puffing around your house of sticks and straws. In a house of spiritual bricks, I face that big bad wolf, the big bad wolf of fear and death. I face that by reminding myself that life is eternal. And when my magic suit no longer serves me, I will have whatever I need to serve me in whatever the next chapter is. I remind myself of my body's intelligence, and whatever's going on in my body knows what to do with it. But that comes from standing in a house of bricks. The big bad wolf of fear, of poverty and lack. It's a real one. But once again, pretty scary in a house of straw. And here's what it sounds like. The poor are never safe in this world. Everyone's taking advantage of me, and I'm treated unfairly by the systems that support the rich. I must figure out every scheme and protect myself before I am cheated and robbed. But this fear, it's not as scary in a house of spiritual bricks. I face that fear by reminding myself that I have everything I need. I am neither the source of my good, nor am I the ending point, the landing place of good. I am a channel through which good flows. And as long as I'm using that good with wisdom and putting it back out in the world, the law of circulation is always working. The law of balance, the law of abundance, the law of cause and effect, they're all at play. And when I live in a spiritual brick house, I've studied them. I know how to use those laws, and I'm not as afraid. There's a big bad wolf fear of loneliness and unworthiness. And that can be very scary, living in a house of sticks where relationships are what ground and protect me. Sounds like my love might leave me or even die. My boss no longer values me. My family threw me away and doesn't accept the way I live. What if I never have children, or what if my children die? What if I never find the right person to love and I die alone? Those are stick house nightmares. But living in the house of spiritual truth, I know that I am one with the all. Relationships are mirrors that show me my stuff, but they don't define me. I'm never alone, and when I stop being afraid of other people, I stand embraced and held by all of the universe, loved for exactly who I am, perfectly who I am. The brick house is a brick of knowing that on the human level we are vulnerable, but on the spiritual level we are powerful. And here's the biggest truth of all. You're not a little pig, and fears are not big bad wolves. It doesn't mean that you won't ever be afraid. Of course we're all going to be afraid. It doesn't mean that you're failing if you feel afraid, or that you shouldn't be afraid. What I'm saying is that if you live in a spiritually sound house, you aren't at the whim of every fear that comes through your mind. You don't have to run from side to side in your house trying to shore up your defenses. Fear doesn't shape your life or shrink your life. Anxiety begins to lose its grip on you in the house of bricks. And why is that? Because you are no longer living your life in fear. Fear of physical forms passing away like they are supposed to do. Let me repeat that. You're no longer living in fear of life because physical forms pass away the way they're supposed to pass away. You're no longer fearing your emotions because you're feeling them, because that's what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to feel them. Perfectionism and comparison, it doesn't run as rampant. You're free to try new things and make mistakes every day. Yeah, you're vulnerable. And some days you might feel like a frightened little pig. But the truth is you're a divine spiritual being on this physical plane to live in many houses and structures. You know, I say this too shall pass, and sometimes whatever this is passes into something synchronistic and beautiful. And as a spiritual being, you have access to the possibilities of the universe and the wisdom of the all. Yeah, you, and you, and you, all of you. And there's one more thing I want to remind you of. When the wolf of fear comes to your house and you feel it shaking and your knees are quaking, this brick house of spiritual truth is here for you. Come here, and you will find some bricks that you can learn to lay as part of your house. Bricks of oneness and love and compassion and kindness and positivity and creativity and beautiful music and all these things. They're available here. Community. You can find spiritual practices and learn to use them, like prayer and meditation. We have opportunities for you to do those things. Books to read, classes to take, ways to serve, ways to give. Those are all bricks that are a part of a spiritual truth house. Here, you can build a spiritual house for yourself. And I stand here in this spiritual truth bricks house to remind you that life is beautiful and that you have within you every single thing you need to live fully and vulnerably in this world. You can relax and know that fear has no real power over you and that you are indeed free to love, free to appreciate all the good around you, free to go forth and create a life that works for you, that you want. And yeah, gather the sticks and straws that make your life beautiful. Again, as a human, you are vulnerable, but as a spiritual being, you are powerful beyond your wildest imagination. And just as in the movie Babe, the farmer winked and said, and I say to you today, that'll do, pig. Let's remind us of our affirmation of the day. I may be vulnerable as a human being, but as a spiritual being, I am powerful. So let's continue to lay bricks together, okay?